Hello everyone and welcome to another video from KoiKoiDesigns. Today I will be working on doing the watercolor painting for this inked piece that you're seeing right now and going into a little bit of detail about methods, materials, and techniques. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the technique that you're seeing me apply here while I'm doing this painting. One of the first things that you're probably going to notice is I actually have two brushes in one hand. The reason that I have two brushes that are being held in one hand and that I'm switching quickly between one and the other is because in this actual style of painting, this detailed style, you have one brush that is loaded with pigment and a second brush that is loaded with water. And what you're doing is essentially placing the pigment where you want it on the painting, and then you quickly switch to the water brush in order to spread that pigment out to the areas that you want it to be placed in. This allows you to very easily control both the flow of the paint as well as the amount of moisture that is on the paper. For anyone who has ever worked with rice paper, you know that it's very sensitive to moisture, and the fact that I'm using two brushes in one hand, allowing me to quickly switch back and forth between the pigment brush and the water brush, allows me to more easily control the amount of moisture and the amount of paint that's being placed on the paper, and it also gives me a very delicate touch so that I'm not working the paper too terribly hard and causing it to become over-soaked, which will then in turn cause the paper to rip very easily. A central technique to this painting style is actually also utilizing several layers. It can be anywhere from 3 to 9, so between each layer you actually also have to remember to allow the paper to dry very completely. Luckily, because you're actually using a very small amount of pigment and a very carefully controlled amount of water, this doesn't take very long, and usually within 30 minutes or so I can go ahead and apply the second layer. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to talk about as far as this kind of painting style is concerned is the kind of lighting that you see me applying here. The best way that I can describe the kind of light that is used in Chinese painting, both in the detailed style and the looser, more expressive style, is a combination of ambient light and sculptural light. Ambient light is simply when a subject is lit in such a way that the overall effect gives a very soft, sort of airbrushed look with no real definition of shadows and highlights, and the overall values themselves tend to be in the middle range, and they tend to just have an overall even tone to them. And sculptural lighting, the best way that I can describe it is actually with an example. If we take the example of a sphere and theoretically light it so that the point that is closest to us, the highest point on the sphere, is the lightest, and the edges, the point farthest from us, are the darkest. That kind of describes what sculptural lighting is in theory. And the whole point behind sculptural lighting is to try to give something a three-dimensional look, even though in real life I don't think you could actually ever see this specific kind of lighting situation unless you actually took a light and specifically placed it very directly in front of an object and far enough from the object that the overall effect would be kind of soft, which also kind of explains how it's a combination of ambient and sculptural light that you're actually seeing used in this piece. Normally, I would actually want to paint something with what we call Rembrandt lighting, which simply, in other words, is a very strong single or double point light source, with the second one being a little bit weaker and being used as sort of a bounce light. That's the kind of light that you're usually actually taught to use in art school, but in this case, I'm actually ignoring all of those rules. I am very specifically utilizing a different kind of lighting because it's the kind that is used in Chinese painting, and the reason that you use this sort of soft overall look is because what it does is it allows you to apply color and extra detail while not overworking the painting to the point that the line work gets lost. Another important part of the detailed style of painting is some of the actual drawings can get very, very, very detailed, so having a very subtle and gentle overall sort of approach to color and value is actually really important when you're doing this kind of work. Okay, so that about wraps it up for part 1 of this. There will be a part 2 in the series where I will be taking this piece of black and white artwork and going into the computer and actually finishing it digitally. But for now, I am going to sign off. I hope that everyone enjoyed watching this. So if you did, please feel free to hit the subscriber button, and I will talk to you later. 再见, everyone. First, I just wanted to open up today with a few examples of the painting that I do, and to explain to you that the work that I do at KoiKoi is heavily influenced by traditional Chinese painting. Most of the work that you are going to see is done with that influence in mind, and within the realm of Chinese painting, there are two main methods that exist.